Ukraine has once again captured the attention of the entire world, sending shockwaves through global politics, military strategy, and international diplomacy. In the past few days, developments connected to Crimea have triggered intense debate, speculation, and concern across capitals from Washington to Moscow. What was once considered an unchangeable reality has suddenly begun to look uncertain. And that uncertainty alone is enough to rattle even the most powerful nations. For years, Crimea has stood at the center of one of the most complex geopolitical conflicts of the modern era. Since 2014, the region has symbolized not only territorial dispute, but also the clash between international law, military force, and national identity. Many analysts believed the status of Crimea was effectively frozen, a situation that would remain unresolved for decades. But recent actions by Ukraine have challenged that assumption in a way few expected. What makes this moment so shocking is not just what happened, but how it happened. Ukraine, a country that was once widely underestimated on the global stage, has demonstrated an ability to adapt, innovate, and strike with strategic precision. Observers note that Ukraine's recent moves around Crimea are not isolated incidents, but part of a broader strategy that combines military pressure, intelligence operations, economic disruption, and psychological warfare. Reports emerging from the region suggest increased Ukrainian activity targeting key infrastructure linked to Crimea. Supply routes, logistical hubs, and military assets that once seemed secure are now under constant threat. This has forced Russian forces to divert resources, strengthen defenses, and rethink their assumptions about control in the area. Even without officially declared territorial changes, the psychological impact has been immense. International media outlets have described the situation as a turning point. For the first time in years, the idea that Crimea could become a serious point of pressure rather than a settled issue is being openly discussed. Military analysts emphasize that modern conflicts are no longer defined only by who controls territory on a map, but by who controls momentum, perception, and strategic initiative. In that sense, Ukraine's recent actions have already achieved something significant. The global response has been swift. Western governments have closely monitored developments, issuing cautious statements that avoid escalation while reaffirming support for Ukraine's sovereignty. Diplomatic channels are reportedly active behind the scenes as world leaders try to assess what comes next and how far this situation might go. At the same time, global markets have reacted with nervous energy, especially in sectors tied to energy, shipping, and regional security. Russia, on the other hand, has found itself in a difficult position. Official statements emphasize stability and control, but the increased defensive measures around Crimea tell a more complicated story. Military movements, reinforced air defenses, and heightened alert levels suggest concern about potential vulnerabilities. For a region that was once presented as fully secure, these measures speak volumes. What truly amplifies the shock factor is Ukraine's messaging. Ukrainian officials have carefully balanced confidence with restraint, signaling determination without explicitly declaring dramatic outcomes. This ambiguity has proven powerful. It keeps opponents guessing, allies engaged, and global audiences watching closely. In modern information warfare, uncertainty can be just as effective as force. Experts point out that Ukraine's approach reflects lessons learned over years of conflict. Rather than relying on massive offensives alone, Ukraine has focused on precision, intelligence sharing, and coordination with partners. This strategy minimizes losses while maximizing impact, a combination that has reshaped perceptions of Ukraine's military capabilities. The Crimea issue also carries enormous symbolic weight. For Ukraine, it represents territorial integrity and national dignity. For Russia, it represents strategic depth, naval access, and political narrative. Any shift, even a perceived one, threatens to alter not only military calculations, but also domestic and international legitimacy. That is why even small changes around Crimea resonate so loudly. On social media, reactions have been explosive. Videos, maps, expert breakdowns, and speculative analyses have gone viral within hours. Hashtags related to Ukraine and Crimea have trended globally, reflecting widespread fascination and concern. In the digital age, public perception spreads faster than official confirmations, shaping narratives long before facts are fully established. Some analysts caution against jumping to conclusions. They argue that while Ukraine's actions are impressive, Crimea remains heavily fortified, and any long-term change would require sustained effort and international alignment. Others counter that history often turns on moments when the impossible suddenly looks plausible. From this perspective, Ukraine's recent moves may be remembered as the moment when the psychological balance shifted. Another key factor is international military assistance. While Ukraine operates independently, its ability to challenge entrenched positions is influenced by training, intelligence, and technology support from allies. This has raised questions about how far external support might go if pressure around Crimea continues to intensify. So far, Western leaders have walked a careful line, avoiding direct involvement while maintaining strong backing. Beyond the battlefield, the Crimea situation has implications for global security norms. If Ukraine can effectively challenge a long-standing occupation through persistence and strategic innovation, it may influence how other conflicts are viewed worldwide. Smaller nations facing larger adversaries may see this as evidence that resilience and smart strategy can matter as much as raw power. At the same time, there are risks. Escalation around Crimea could provoke unpredictable responses, increasing the danger of wider conflict. This is why many diplomats stress the importance of communication, de-escalation mechanisms, and careful calibration of actions. The world is watching not only what happens next, but how responsibly it unfolds. Energy security is another critical dimension. Crimea's location and the surrounding Black Sea region play a significant role in trade routes and energy infrastructure. Any instability there can ripple through global markets, affecting prices and supply chains far beyond Eastern Europe. This adds another layer of urgency to international attention. For ordinary Ukrainians, these developments carry deep emotional meaning. Years of war have taken a heavy toll, but moments like this reinforce a sense of agency and hope. The idea that no part of their country is forgotten or permanently lost has powerful psychological effects. It strengthens national unity and reinforces commitment to long-term goals. Russian public opinion, meanwhile, faces a more complex situation. Official narratives emphasize strength and resilience, but prolonged uncertainty can strain public confidence. How this dynamic plays out internally could influence decision-making at the highest levels. As days pass, one thing is clear. The situation around Crimea has entered a new phase. Even without dramatic announcements, the shift in tone, activity, and global reaction marks a significant moment. Ukraine has demonstrated that it can shape the agenda, forcing the world to re-examine assumptions that once seemed unchangeable. History often unfolds not in single decisive events, but in a series of moments that gradually alter the balance of power. This may be one of those moments. Whether it leads to negotiations, prolonged tension, or further strategic maneuvers remains to be seen. What cannot be denied is that Ukraine has once again reminded the world that it is not a passive actor, but a determined force shaping its own future. As the world waits for the next development, attention remains firmly fixed on Crimea. Every movement, every statement, and every silence is analyzed in real time. In an era defined by rapid change and constant uncertainty, Ukraine's latest actions have delivered a clear message. The story is far from over, and the outcome is still being written.